Hello and welcome to one of my all-time favorite games, a true classic in the true meaning of the word, Pirates. Made for the Commodore 64 in 1987. There may have been earlier versions, I wouldn't know, I didn't look it up. But Pirates is probably the first open world game ever made. And the fact that it was made on the Commodore 64 is quite incredible. As you can probably gather from the title, in Pirates you play as a pirate. But you don't have to, and that's what makes it so brilliant. The first few games you play, you'll probably play as a pirate, go around doing pirating things. But then you might be intrigued to try other things, like being a pirate hunter or being a trader, or see how you can manage doing not so piratey things in a game called Pirates. Why not? For the purpose of this video, I've just recorded a bit of initial gameplay from starting up the game and then doing a few battles and plundering and speak to the governor and whatnot. So while that runs in the background, I will be yapping away. When I bought Pirates a good 30 years ago for the Commodore 64, it cost me a solid 27 quid, something around that price back then. So people saying that game prices are expensive these days, they haven't actually changed that much overall. Back then, paying that much for a game was incredible, to be honest. And the label Microprose, which were known for games like Silent Service and Gunship and whatever else they were making, it was usually a batch of quality. If you were into that type of games, of course, that's a certain requirement, but when you bought a game from Microprose, you usually got a 120 page manual partially describing the gameplay and how to play the game, obviously, but also historical references and small stories and all sorts of things, which made the book or the manual almost worth the purchase price alone. It was that good. Well, Pirates on the Commodore 64 may not be the most spectacularly looking game or sounding game, but you know what, I actually think that plays to its strength, because this is a game about gameplay. 110% gameplay. The graphic is functional, the sound is, in my opinion, quite nice. The tunes are quite catchy, they stick in your mind quite quickly. And to give a general idea of a game, you start as a unknown nobody and trying to work your way through the ranks by earning favor with the different countries, or I wouldn't recommend being hostile to everyone, that's not going to be good. But you can benefit from conflicts between the European nations, and they would rather risk your ships than they would risk their own, so if you can get a letter of marque, you are authorized to attack shipping and cities from other nations. Again, they don't have to waste their own ships doing it, so why not? And you can earn even titles and land grants. And in that respect, while you can go into a city and get promotions for doing things for whatever nation you are favoring, or nations, it could be multiple, it could be all of them if you try to be a pirate hunter, which I find to be the most interesting and most difficult aspect of the game, because trying to keep a crew happy, I'll get to that in a moment actually. The thing is though, if you go out and destroy a few ships or sack a town here and there, and then you go back to your nation's governor in one of the locations, you can get a promotion, but if you just scrape by and only do enough to get a promotion, you don't get any land grant, which towards the end of the game, where your score is tallied up, is what's really important. Your titles are fine, but if you are Baron and you own 5 square feet of land, then bleh, that title counts for nothing. So you want to try and do a few things here and there, and then go back and get promoted, so you get some wealth and some land alongside the promotion. Oh, we are being chased by quite a powerful ship actually. This gave me a chance to show off one of the mechanics, which seems a bit odd, but for the purpose of gameplay, I think actually it works quite well in Pirates. You see, the fight between your men and your enemies, or victim, or whatever you call it, men, is based on your fight with the enemy captain. As long as you're winning the fight, your crew can get absolutely mauled and you will still win the battle. And here's a very apt display of that. I did not intend for this to happen. I was a bit As you can see, he has a lot more men than I have, and his morale is strong. For every single time you get a strong hit on an enemy, the morale even will shift. So when you hit him, you will gain a positive morale, and when he hits you, your morale will drop. Anyone who's panicked and gets hit will surrender, or if you're reduced to 1 man, you will surrender next time you get hit, no matter what morale it is. And in this fight I get reduced to 1 man, and I was a bit panicky about getting hit again. You could argue that it's a bit wonky than that it works that way, but you know what, it suits the game. It's quite it feels like it's got its place in the game, because back then the leaders were at the front, not hiding behind some desk or somewhere trying to tell the others what to do. No, they were in the front. And for some dumb reason I was actually hoping to get some more crew to join me after I defeated their captain, but it wasn't to be. So you need at least 8 crew members to man 1 ship, and as it turns out, after that fight I had very little crew left. So I had to abandon the ship I just captured and throw cargo overboard, which is always a very positive thing to do. But in any case, the scope of Pirates, the setting is the Caribbean, the Spanish Main, basically in the 15th or 16th, 17th century even. And the area you play in is actually quite large, surprisingly so, and in the game box you also get a map, which is very, very useful to have so you don't get lost. You can easily find yourself with no clue where you are, and having a map, it's the most brilliant type of copy protection. Just put a lot of goodies in the box so that you either depend on them or you will want them. And that's what microprose used to do back in the day. As a pirate, the game can be a bit tricksy, because you are encouraged to gather men in order to be able to take on greater loot runs, so to speak. Some of the greater Spanish cities, or if you turn on the English, French or Dutch, some of their cities as well, can be very, very hard to take down. I'm not going to show it in this video, but you can attempt to capture a city or sack the city by attacking it from land. And some of the Spanish, I will mainly focus on the Spanish because they are usually the targets. Some of those Spanish cities, they require that you have a huge amount of men to attack them. And there's a little catch to that though, and that is morale. Your crew, when they sign up for a share of the loot. So if you have 50 crew members and you have 10,000 gold, well, their share looks promising. If you have 1,200 men and you have 10,000 gold, then suddenly that share doesn't look very promising anymore, and those men will expect you to rake in money very, very quickly, or they will start getting very, very unhappy. And they will, if pushed hard enough, mutiny against you, and you don't want that. Another thing to consider is food consumption. You have 200 tons of food, which sounds like a lot of food, and then suddenly you realize that you're basically burning 3 tons of food per day. And suddenly your 200 tons of food is not going to stretch too much. So if you decide to go and plunder the big cities like Cartagena, I think it's called. I'm not Spanish, I wouldn't know. Panama and other large Spanish cities, you want to gather your crew and head straight for the targets. Don't hang around, don't blah blah blah. You want to go straight for the targets, because you cannot retain that force of men. You just cannot keep them happy. You can capture gallons and gallons and gallons and gallons and gallons, and it won't. No matter how much gold you pull in, it's virtually impossible, especially at the highest difficulty level. At the highest difficulty level, they become unhappy if you look the wrong way. So, while it's fun and exciting, you have to do some planning, and that's another aspect of the game. It makes it quite unique in many ways, is that you have to plan ahead of time where you want to go, what you want to do, what your target is, and then build up a force to reach your target. And once you reach your target, it's time to divide the plunder, where every sailor will get their share of the loot and be more or less unhappy about it. Based on the difficulty level, you get a certain amount of the loot, and that, if you decide to go for another voyage, that money is put up front as your starting capital for the next voyage. So, what else is there to be said? That was something I was going to say before, but I'm getting old, I forget things. Of course, when it comes to there's something important. I hate when I do that. Let's see if I can remember it. Yeah, of course. A tactic my brother used to do, which was quite brutal actually, if you think about it. When it was time to divide the plunder, he went in and attacked a city and basically sacrificed his men. First and foremost, he became he gained the rep of being a daring captain because he did something exceedingly brave or stupid, whatever. And of course, when he suddenly lost for 400, 500, 600 crew members, there was fewer men to fight over the loot. So of course they were a lot more happy when it came to dividing the plunder. Not necessarily a tactic I will recommend using, but you can pimp your score like that. Speaking of, we are going to just show a bit of naval combat here. And next time I'm in town, I will divide the plunder and move on to the Amiga version. I will only give the Amiga version a few minutes because you'll see when we get there. Looking at pirates, it makes me think about the games that are made today. Production values are just superseding gameplay these days. I mean, you're having game companies spending as much money as a blockbuster movie company or production company spends on a super action movie. And the income they are expected to gain is just ridiculous. They can never make that kind of money back, and I don't know why they do it. one of the things that makes Pirates special to me, the Commodore 64 version anyway, is the fact that it's giving you a canvas and you have to fill in the blanks. You have to set yourself in the mood. Your imagination has to fill in not a lot of blanks, but some blanks, and that's, in my opinion, is what makes it so immersive. I know it's a buzzword and I know it's a naughty word and all sorts of things, but you feel, if you're into that, if you're not into the setting, you will not gain anything from playing this game, obviously. It will probably just be a bit bleh. But if you can get your mindset right and you can give in to the setting and just become part of the setting, you'll be surprised by how much you can give, and that is very much down to your own imagination, which I think is super cool. That is what makes this game special. My own brother, he scoffed this game first time he saw it. He laughed his head off, and then he started playing it himself and he was absolutely hooked. It is very, very addictive, and you can easily find yourself in the situation where you spend 10 hours you didn't expect to have spent playing a game. So we'll get a review after our adventure, and now we are going to switch to the Amiga version right after this. Almost there. Come on, come on. Here we go. The Amiga version of Pirates, when that was released, I bought it on the spot, blind. Not necessarily a purchase I would say I regret, but as you can probably see, the presentation is quite slick. The graphics are nice, the music is nice. When it comes to the music between the two versions, I like both versions. I don't have a favorite graphics department. I do like the spiffy look of the Amiga version. Bear in mind, this is many years ago, so I know high-tech graphics today will make this look like part of junk. I don't care. That's what we had back then, and back then it was amazing. But let me put it this way, and this is something I will be saying a lot in my videos. If I wasn't aware of the Amiga version of a certain game, then the 64 version would probably be much better, and if I wasn't aware of the 64 version, the Amiga version would probably be much better than it is. And that is definitely the case of Amiga Pirates. If I'd never played Commodore 64 version before, I would probably enjoy it more than I do, or that I did. While the graphics are improved and there's animations and all sorts of things, the fighting between captains, it feels so sluggish compared. Navigation at sea feels extremely sluggish, and the fact that, I know it seems completely pointless this day, but, or today, this era, whatever, but back then the Commodore computers were notoriously famous for their ability to scroll a screen smoothly. I know it sounds crazy, but that's one of the things that both the Amiga and the Commodore 64 were extremely well known for. Maybe in different basements for the kids that actually cared, or the young people that actually cared, but it was important. Moving a screen fluently, something you take for granted, but it was a big thing back then. And for some reason, when you're navigating on the Amiga version on the sea, you move from screen to screen, and it is so disheartening. It is so, for me personally, it's a deal breaker. I know it sounds stupid, but it's a deal breaker. It just feels so ugh. So what it has in presentation, it likes in the feel of the gameplay, which is not the same feel in the Amiga version as there was in the Commodore 64 version, and that is why I will say that I could play the Amiga version, but I do prefer the Commodore 64 version by a country mile. And I've got a few minutes left to fill in, so I will fill them in by making mention of a 2005 remake Sid Meier did of Pirates. I bought it when I saw it. I have to admit, I bought it. I have the box version with a t-shirt and map and all sorts of goodies. And while I did find the remake enjoyable, it's just, for my liking, it's too whimsical. Being a pirate, I know it's supposed to be Errol Flynn-inspired, swashbuckling adventure stuff, but at the same time, I just think the remake made it too whimsical. It looks nice and it sounds great and it plays well, but it was just I just could not take that game seriously compared to specifically even the Commodore 64 version of Pirates. And while I do enjoy the remake of Pirates to a certain point, if I was to take one version that I would call the definite version of Pirates, it would probably be the original Commodore 64 version. Sure, it hasn't got all the whistles and bells, and sure, it hasn't got blah blah blah, and playing the original disc version, you will be surprised by how microprocessors always impressed me by their disk routines for the Commodore 64, because the Commodore 64 floppy drive was notorious for being super slow, and I don't know how they did it. Gunship, Pirates, and other of their games, they just Airplane Ranger, they just loaded so quickly. So I don't know what they were using, but it was definitely magical. But anyway, Pirates, I have deliberately not gone too far into the game because I think this is a game that deserves to be played. Watching it being played is one thing, playing it yourself is quite different. And if you're into classic gaming or into retro gaming and whatnot, try and give this one a bash, especially if you can get yourself into the mindset of running around in wooden vessels in the 16th, 17th century. Pirates was one of those first games where I really understood what gameplay meant. It's got bags of it. It seems simple, it seems like nothing when you look at it initially, and then you start playing it, and then suddenly the birds start singing and the sun gets up, or rises I should say, and then you suddenly realize that you spend the entire night playing a game you didn't think much of. So, on that note, I'm going to say I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, take care, and see you next time. Bye bye.